pretty much removed the entire rear end of this MClaren. And we did find some more damage on this intake tube right here. And there's a big old crack in the back right here. As we got the radiator off, and man, this thing is gigantic. I guess we got two of them to cool this big old V8, and we also can see the What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be back to work on our McLaren 720S. As you guys seen in the previous episode, we ripped the entire interior out of this car. We took the dashboard out, the seats, and everything came out pretty smoothly. And our wiring is still in the car because we actually need to start digging into the back of this thing. So the way we're gonna have to start doing this is basically start from the rear bumper and just start taking everything apart on this car. We're gonna have to get to that engine bay. As you can see, there's no hood or anything on a McLaren. All you get is this little window right here. You can see the engine, but you can't really open anything up. So that means you have to unscrew everything and just start pulling everything apart. And I think the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and put this thing on some jack stands, get both rear rims off so we can get to all the bolts inside here, because we have to pull this bumper off and the spoiler and basically everything in the back over here. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and put this thing on jack stands, remove these rear rims because we need to get this rear bumper off. And I really honestly don't even know where to start with it. It's so freaking complicated. But I think there is some bolts right here. Remove this rear diffuser because I've seen some dyno videos and they usually take this thing off and it's pretty simple. A couple bolts under there, and then I guess once we do that and start pulling everything on the sides, it should come off pretty easy. So we got both wheels off the McLaren, and we did do a little bit more investigating in here, and we do actually have a bad axle on this side right here. As you can see, we have some rear steering back here. This control arm right here is just bent. Check that out. It's bent like a banana. And basically what we're gonna start doing now is start removing this rear bumper. There's a couple bolts at the bottom, and I think there's one right here, and that's just gonna allow us just to slide that thing completely off. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and remove this rear diffuser. There's a couple of Torx bits at the bottom, and it should just fall right off. We got this rear diffuser off, and we did notice we are missing a chunk out of here. This is supposed to be perfectly straight right here, and this right here has a little crack in it, but this thing is plastic, so we could possibly repair it, or we could actually get a carbon fiber diffuser, which would match the car really good. So we got the rear diffuser off. Now it's time to go ahead and tackle the bumper, and I'm pretty sure the diffuser actually bolts on the brackets right here that are bolted to the rebar. So now all we need to do is unscrew the side pieces right here, and this thing should come off pretty easy. So we got this rear bumper off the car, and it does have a little bit of damage on the side right here, and we notice there's a little bit of cracking inside right there, but I think with a little bit of epoxy and panel bond, we'll be able to fix that up. But check out the rear of this thing. It just looks like a freaking spaceship. It's pretty complicated back here. So now I'm thinking we're gonna go ahead and remove this piece right here, maybe get the taillights off and the spoiler, and then we can probably go ahead and start taking off these quarter panels. So the first thing we're actually gonna remove in the back is the spoiler right here. There's 3 Allen head bolts on each side, and it should just come right off. And the cool thing is this thing was in sport mode, so the spoiler is actually stuck up. Usually they're down until you put it in sport mode, which I guess he was in sport mode and it was going pretty fast. So let's go ahead and get this thing off. So guys, we got the spoiler off, and just check this thing out. This thing is ginormous. I have to make up a new word for it. Look how big it is. But we got this thing off, and we're just gonna continue taking stuff apart. AC line. Very simple. Should replace it. Oh, you gotta replace it. That's quality. So we got both of the tail lights off, and we also went ahead and got these carbon fiber rear ducts off, and we actually finally got this engine cover out, and now we get to see the heart of this beast. Check that thing out. Kind of sucks that they didn't make it where you could see more of this engine, but now that we got most of this stuff off, we can go ahead and start removing these quarter panels. And these quarter panels actually unbolt on the sides right here. We have a bunch of bolts right here and then a couple down here, so we need to go ahead and remove this plastic piece and take this thing off. No, I don't use super glue. I usually use flex tape because flex tape is it's usually the best for this.
Right. Yeah, that's an easy fix, honestly.
It's got a big old puzzle piece with no instructions. So check this out, guys. We pretty much removed the entire rear end of this McLaren, and man, it is looking complicated. We have intercoolers, intake pipes. We do have a little bit more damage. Dang, I didn't even notice this right here. This is the intake for the turbo, and the turbos are somewhere down there. I think you can see them. If you look super closely, there's two little turbskis on this thing. Well, we pretty much got the rear quarter panels off, and we're gonna have to start diving deeper into here. Basically get this off right here and slowly start getting into this engine bay. I'm still not sure how we're gonna remove this entire engine, if we're gonna remove it with the subframe or lower the engine out. We basically just need to keep digging deeper into here. But I do know these radiators are all gonna have to come off right here. We got a radiator and then the condenser, that's for the AC unit, so we have all of that right there. So now that we pretty much have everything removed off this car, we're gonna continue moving into this engine bay right here because we wanna get that wiring out so we can go ahead and put that wiring back in our new car. So let's go ahead and get this little heat shields off right here. A couple 8mm bolts and it should be off. So we got this cover off, and now we need to remove this stock exhaust, or I'm pretty sure this is the sport exhaust. It is built a little bit different, but what do you guys think? Should we upgrade this exhaust? Because actually just to replace this exhaust, you have to remove both quarter panels just to get to it. So we're probably gonna have to go ahead and order a new one, maybe some kind of aftermarket one. So drop some links down below, maybe what kinds sound better or anything like that. But let's go ahead and get this thing off and dig deeper.
After the first round, he looks super.
So we got the entire rear of this car basically all taken apart, and man, it does really look complicated over here. And I was actually watching how McLaren builds these cars, and it's a pretty complex process the way they do it. I was planning on maybe we could just unbolt this entire rear end section and just move it off and then put it on that one, but I was watching the McLaren build video, and you probably will have to remove the engine and just move everything down and then slowly transition everything because it is really complicated. There's a bunch of lines everywhere, a bunch of hydraulic lines, a bunch of wires everywhere, and it's looking pretty complicated right now, but we're not losing faith yet. So as you guys see, we've stripped everything down, and one of the cool things I'm doing right now is putting all the bolts back in their original spot, just so I don't really lose anything, because this thing is really freaking complicated, and there's a lot of just tubes, a lot of air boxes. Here we have the carbon fiber air box, and we are finding a lot more damage than expected. Like these brackets on these radiators is a little bit cracked right here, and same thing on that side. Has a little bit of cracks, but I think we can epoxy everything back together. And we did find some more damage on this intake tube right here, and there's a big old crack in the back right here and then right here. So kind of glad we didn't start this car, because there might be some plastic pieces stuck inside the turbo inlet, and we gotta be super careful because we wouldn't want that to get sucked into the turbo, and that could ruin the turbo, and these things are really expensive. So now what we're gonna have to start doing is basically removing both side radiators, and just check out how big and massive these are. This is one on this side. I'm pretty sure this is the AC. Condenser also is jammed in there somewhere, and then we have our radiator. And we're gonna have to remove all of this stuff because I'm pretty sure the fuel tank sits back here. As you can see on our new tub, the fuel tank sits back here, and that's probably why we won't be able to just remove everything in one piece like I wanted to. So we're gonna have to just start removing these side radiators and basically see exactly what's back there and exactly what we need to remove. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and remove this radiator. We have two lines on the top, and I'm pretty sure we have one line at the bottom, and then we have one wire right here. Not too much sensors on the radiator, which is pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure all the fluid is already drained because we kind of had this car lifted up like that when it was on the lift when we were trying to get it off. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and just remove this side, and then we'll remove the other side. So check this out, guys. We got the radiator off, and man, this thing is gigantic. I guess we got two of them to cool this big old V8, and we also can see the turbo. Check it out. We got a little Terpski right there. And it is looking a lot more complicated over here. I'm guessing this is the dry sump oil lubrication tank right here. And then the gas tank is right behind it. So we're definitely gonna have to probably pull the engine out first and then start swapping all this stuff over. So let's go ahead and remove the other side radiator, and we might go ahead and remove these air intakes. Alright.
First thing I'm gonna do is help out my family members. I'm gonna
So now we have both radiators off, and we did find a little bit more damage on this side right here. As you can see, this bracket is just completely mangled up right here. But the crazy thing is, it did not break the radiator. The radiator still had a lot of fluid, and it's crazy. All it is just sitting on this little tab, and it took a pretty good impact right there. I actually didn't even have to unscrew the top because this bracket is also bent. So we got super lucky on this radiator. No damage on that. And also, I don't see anything else that's damaged under here. This lower bottom piece is a little bit mangled up in here, but I think we can easily straighten it out or get a new one. It's not too big of a deal. Everything over here looks great, and now we have access to this side turbo over here. There's no oil or anything anywhere. Looking good. So check this out, guys. We pretty much got everything off, but I think this is gonna be a good stopping point because I really don't want to start digging into like all the engine stuff just yet. We basically just removed all the outer shell, and man, this thing just looks insanely complicated. But once you actually get into it, it does get a little simpler. Like for instance, right here, this looks pretty complicated, but all it is just an air box that goes there. And what we're gonna do probably in the next episode is start removing all this stuff because I want to get this engine back in the car as soon as possible. So as soon as we drop it out of this one, we're gonna just go ahead and just start swapping everything over, and then we can also deal with all the suspension and all the crazy stuff underneath. There's a lot of lines on this car, and we're going to swap the fuel tank, which is sitting somewhere back here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the fuel tank is back here, and what we're going to do is drop the subframe first with the engine and transmission, so that's going to come down, and then we'll remove all these wiring and these big old, this is like the main cradle right here, and then there's a smaller one for the engine, so we're just going to slowly remove all of that. And I know, guys, this looks really complicated, but it's actually really not that complicated. Everything actually unscrewed with a Torx bit, 8mm and a 10, and we pretty much just stripped off the entire rear of this car. And we are probably going to get an aftermarket exhaust for it, so that's going to be a pretty cool upgrade for this thing while everything is all apart. And we might also go ahead and do the downpipes also, because check that out, you have to take everything everything apart just to get to them, and we're already at this stage, so we might as well go ahead and do some upgrading on there. And we also, off camera, we did take a good look at this entire subframe, and we didn't see any cracks or anything. As you guys know, this car was in an insane accident. The guy was probably doing 100 miles an hour plus, just by judging how bad all the carbon fiber up there is cracked. And that's a really good sign that none of this is broken back here, because this subframe is really pricey and they're hard to find. As you guys know, with this tub, it was the only one in the country, which we got super lucky with, and glad that none of that is broken. And there's really not much stuff in the back on this car that is broken. So that's basically gonna be a wrap for today's video. We got a lot of work done on this McLaren, and we are kind of trying to take our time and find out exactly where all the bolts are, so we know exactly how to put this thing back together. And it's really not that complicated. I'm gonna have to say it right now. Everything is like this quarter panel, 6 bolts, which is pretty cool. Everything just bolts on versus like the older McLarens. But in the next episode, we are going to be completely removing this entire engine and hopefully putting it back into here. And that's just going to be a super crazy episode. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like, and also turn on your post notifications so you don't miss any part of this crazy build. So this build is getting crazy. We're trying to get videos out as fast as possible for you guys, but it is pretty tough working on these supercars. Everything is expensive and you just have to work around it. But if you guys want to support the channel, head over to vtune.com, grab you a hoodie, maybe a shirt or something like that. Support the channel, support the build. Thanks for watching.